start with the Washington Post ABC poll that came out yesterday about, I think the president's number was 61% or 62%. Didn't think the president has accomplished much, and the speaker's numbers were not that great either. So how, with a divided Congress, can we all get this going?
Well, I think we have actually put a lot of points on the board, almost all bipartisan. The infrastructure bill, which is building roads and putting in broadband, the CHIPS legislation that's trying to bring those semiconductor jobs and that manufacturing back to America. Now the challenge is some of that takes a little bit of time for people to actually feel it. But my guest tonight is a 94-year-old lady from Fredericksburg, Virginia, Mrs. Young. She is already saving literally hundreds of dollars on a monthly basis because her insulin, she takes 2 types of insulin, are capped at $35 a month. She was paying a whole lot more. Now, I hope we could actually say that cap on insulin costs ought to apply to all Americans. I think he needs to paint out where changes in his policies will try to improve Americans' quality of life, and there's more to be done. But we are starting, there's always a lag time. I mean, the fact that gas prices are down roughly under $3.50 now, I mean, that's a lot better than it was when gas was over $5 a gallon. So there's always a lag time, but I think he's got to, the one thing in politics, you got to point it out, you got to talk about it in a way that's human and real, and the kind of examples with my guest, Mrs. Young, that's 94 and literally saving hundreds of dollars a month on insulin, that's the kind of real life story that I think people can relate to.
Not all Americans feel like Mrs. Young. They're gas prices are going up. They paid a fortune for the kids to go to college, and the kids are back in the basement. They see layoffs happening. How do you talk to those people and give them hope?
Well, again, there's a lot of Americans that are hurting with prices that are still too high. But we've seen gas prices fall by about 35% in the last year. We're starting to see the increases in rent start to diminish a bit. We're seeing things like insulin prices come down. There's always a bit of time before people across the board feel that, and there's still a lot more to be done. We've got to make sure that we keep this economy going. The fact is, we just had almost a record amount of 500,000 new jobs. Unemployment's the lowest level ever. So translating that into people's lives is part of the challenge the president's got tonight.
Debt ceiling. Is there anything the Democrats are willing to give up on?
I was involved in this debate in a major way the last time it happened. And $31 trillion in debt that our country's incurred, that's not fair to leave to our kids. And as interest rates go up, for every 1% that interest rates go up, $200 billion a year additional spending just to pay the interest costs. But the idea that a group of political extremists are going to take the full faith and credit of the United States and potentially put that in jeopardy. Remember, the debt ceiling is saying, are we going to pay the bills that we've already incurred? This is not about new debt. This is about paying for things that we've already committed on. And in my mind, this is a political hand grenade that is irresponsibly used. Let's get through the debt ceiling. You want to talk about long-term structural reform. You want to make sure we can figure out a way to bring down that debt. I've been out there on even issues like Social Security, saying we've got to make sure it's going to be viable for the next generation. Part of the reason why it's in trouble is just the fact that we're living a lot longer. I mean, folks don't always appreciate when Social Security was put into place in the 1930s. The government said it would give everybody a check if you hit 65. Average life expectancy at that point was 62. So the idea that some of these programs need to be reformed, count me in, but not in the context of basically threatening the full faith and credit of the United States of America, which is what the debt ceiling is being used for by, again, folks that didn't raise this issue. Remember, the debt ceiling was raised 3 separate times under President Trump with these exact same members of Congress, for the most part, not saying a peep.
So is Social Security an area you're willing to discuss?
I mean, is there a way to say that we ought to make sure that the promise of Social Security is going to be here for future generations? That come 2031 or 32, you could see a 20% cut in benefits. yeah, you can count me in on that discussion. Am I going to have that discussion in context of the debt ceiling, where people are, again, using this political hand grenade to threaten the fiscal standing of America at this moment in time when our country's under a great deal of stress, the whole fiscal environment for the world is under stress? The idea that people would potentially jeopardize that full faith and credit, which would crash the stock market? No, I'm not part of that debate.
What are the easy areas you think both sides of the aisle can
Well,
agree
one of the things, and I'm chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and we continue to work in a bipartisan fashion. I think, and we saw this week with the Chinese balloon floating across the country, I think there's a recognition from both political parties that China potentially is a military threat, but where I really worry is China is making record investments in technology. It's one of the reasons why we needed to bring those semiconductor manufacturing and jobs back here. It's why we need to have a theory of the case and, frankly, economic investment in artificial intelligence and advanced energy in the areas around what's called synthetic biology, how you produce more food in a cheaper manner. And I think around that issue, around competition with China, there's broad bipartisan agreement.
What are the hard areas? What's a hard?
Well, listen, the hard areas are always, it's easy to talk about cuts. It's hard to actually do them. And, I think the hypocrisy of some of my friends in the House who want to talk about all these things, theoretically they want to cut, but don't lay out a plan. That's obviously always been a hard thing to deal with.
Anything else you want to add?
I think you got it.